when I was done working some shit job, I'd come home to my studio apartment and just jam out and rock out those songs. And that's what made me feel the best. They said I had ADD, ADHD, I would get in fights, and all of this was just a creative mind that wasn't really allowed to be creative at the time. Where's the vitamin of love in the school system? I never felt it. I felt like he was leading a horse to water, and then you had to go drink. No drug or alcohol purchase will ever make you feel the way you feel when you're conscious, enlightened, and in touch with the universe.
Talking about masks and about being enlightened, what's your honest take with all this coronavirus?
And after that question, things have heated up. Our guest today is a rapper, singer, songwriter, and producer, and before anything, he's a conscious human being. He got his foot on the door through Bravo Platinum hit in 2011, very high-end competition that at a time he didn't win. However, he started a record label and worked with Snoop Dogg, French Montana, YGs, and many more others. His grandparents were songwriters for Frank Sinatra, therefore it was almost obvious that this guy was going to pursue a music career as well, and every step he took in his career was based off the love for music. He was actually kicked out of every single school he went to, and that was because of his creative mind, his creative brain. We talk about a lot of things, guys, and I'm gonna be very honest with you, this is a very offensive podcast if you're easily offended. However, it's also a very refreshing and a podcast that brings a lot more awareness to a lot of things. So we talk about how the music industry works at the top, how it's like working with top people such as Snoop Dogg, how emotional and spiritual education is not taught nowadays, but on the other side, everything is over-sexualized, especially in music and movies. We also touch upon Kanye's mental breakdown, which seemed like a spiritual awakening. We talk about unplugging from the matrix and becoming more conscious. We also get Nick's very honest thoughts on the COVID and how we are basically obeyed to respect those, I guess, very stupid rules, if you wish. And yeah, we also talk why he doesn't want to be immortal. We touch upon death, existence, reality, heaven, and many more other things, guys. This has been a very refreshing, as I said, episode to say the least, and I hope you will get some value out of it. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, Nick Nittoli. You are listening to The Grateful Show with your hosts Pascu
and Bogdan. Join us on our mission to spread awareness around mental health and make people feel happier and overall more grateful.
Each week, we bring you an inspiring guest, stories, and a message that will help you become your best self and pursue your life mission.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to The Grateful Show. Hope you're all doing fantastic. And if you're not, you're about to be, because today we have no one other than Nick Nittoli. How is it going, brother?
It's going good, man. How you guys doing?
Very well.
Very well. Just starting off the day really good, like you see. So just to break the ice, what are you grateful for today, Nick?
What am I grateful for? I'm grateful for this podcast, man. I'm grateful for you guys letting me get on here and talk about my music and stuff, and appreciate it. So I'm grateful for that.
Awesome. Well, Nick, for our audience that doesn't really know where you come from and what you do, can you give us like a brief introduction, 3 to 4 minutes?
Sure. So I'm originally a songwriter and producer. I kind of got my foot in the door on a Bravo reality TV show called Bravo's Platinum Hit. It was kind of like an American Idol for songwriters and producers and stuff. That was back in 2011. So I kind of used that to get my foot in the door. And then after that, I started a record label. And we eventually caught the ears of people like Snoop Dogg, worked with people like French Montana, YG, Zendaya, Jessie J, etc. And then after I had some skin in the game, I started working with an artist from the UK. Her name's Neon Hitch. Produced and wrote a few songs for her. We had a few hits, and then leveraged myself into getting a record deal, publishing deal with Warner Chappell Music Publishing, and then started doing my artist project, which is really what I'm all about today. So I'm a rapper, singer, songwriter, platinum producer, etc.
Love it, man. Love it. And when did it all start, actually? How old were you when you actually got introduced to the whole, I guess, music scene?
I mean, it goes back to my grandparents. They're both songwriters for Frank Sinatra. So
Okay.
I kind of had that in my blood since I was like a baby. I grew up in a house looking at plaques, you know what I mean? Like always wanting to be somewhat in the music industry. I picked up a guitar off like a garage sale when I was like 9 years old. Started playing it. Would play like Nirvana and Blink-182 songs till my fingers bled. And then eventually started writing my own songs. And so that just kind of led to, the idea that I could actually do this. And then when Platinum Hit on Bravo came around, I was 23 years old and I had been playing those songs and practicing in my room this whole time. So I was ready for it. Preparation met opportunity and that equaled success. So.
Yeah, that's really sick. Nick, I'm curious because a lot of youngsters, teenagers nowadays, they just want to be in this music industry. I mean, you know it. And with you as well, I guess, because that was your dream since you were a child. Yeah, and with all this pressure, because you knew that so many people want to make it in this industry, was it difficult or stressful for you to, or did it even like come into your mind to actually change your path just because there's so much competition out there?
Yeah, for me, it was music or nothing else because of my passion and my drive. I love the love for music carried me. So for me, I never really cared. I knew there was competition, obviously, but I never really cared about that because I loved it so much. At the end of the day, when I was done working some shit job, I'd come home to my studio apartment and just jam out and rock out those songs. And that's what made me feel the best. And when I learned what production was and started producing music, I fell in love with it even more. And, every step I've taken in my career is based off of the love of music. I started as a songwriter and then moved to a producer and then moved to a mixer, mastering engineer. And that's all based off the fact that I could listen to music all day long. So for me, I could care less how many people love it as well. I love it. I love it. So.
Awesome. And to circle around what you just said, Tom Bilio, I think he's mentioned it on his podcast a while ago. He said that there's always room at the top, no matter how competitive an industry might be. If you are really hungry and you are really, I guess, prepared to give what it takes to get to the top, there's always room there. But speaking of that, how was your, I guess, whole transition from you? You were just mentioning that you were in a studio working normal job. How was that whole transition and how long did it take and how was your mindset at the time? Because obviously juggling your actual passion and like something that provides for you short term isn't something that is easy to take, right?
Sure. I mean, it was always the dream. It was always what I wanted to be doing. So like I was working at like places like T-Mobile and UPS. And in the back of my mind, as I'm like selling cell phones, I'm like, I'm going to be a star one day. So for me, it wasn't that big of a transition because that's always what I had in mind. But actually, getting on that TV show on Platinum Hit, I realized that I was actually in the game and there were real professionals that were teaching us. I mean, we had Ryan Tedder, Donna Summer, Rodney Jerkins, all these people who had a huge accumulation of success right in front of me trying to teach me how to do my job better. It was like, that's when I really realized like, this is a job. This is something that I have to really work hard at and take it to the next level. And that I feel like was the biggest transition point for me, because once I got on there, I was like, I'm never going home. I'm never going back to working, shit jobs again. Like, this is it for me.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, really, really inspiring. I'm really curious. What's your honest take nowadays on the music industry? Because there are so many rumors that, people can get there only if you know someone. And that's, of course, normal because, you gotta know people and you gotta have connections. But, yeah. There are so many people who are saying that you gotta pay for your place, like in top of there. Is that correct? Or not?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably my biggest problem with the music industry right now is that there's so many people that just come from money and can just buy 1 million views on YouTube or buy a 1 billion plays on Spotify and make it look like they really got skin in the game. But at the end of the day, for me, I've always kind of used my talent as my monetary value. For me, like the actual gift that I've been given from God, and my talent is what I consider wealth. So for me, it's like if you don't have that, and if you haven't worked on your craft enough and elevated yourself to the next level of your talent, nobody gives a fuck how many millions of views you have. They're going to eventually press play and listen to you. And if you haven't worked to get to that place, it'll show. And, for me, I believe in, karmic value of life. Like if you've really put time into something, eventually you'll get your due from the universe. So for me, it's like, I think they're just kind of running like a hamster in a wheel.
I was listening to one of your soundtracks, and
Right
this really stood out to me. And you were saying anyone who paved the fucking way is probably fucking turning in their grave. What do you actually mean by that?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm 33 years old. So I come from a time where like Tupac was around when I was just a youngin', and a lot of big artists who aren't with this whole social media idea of being a musician and an artist. And I think they would spit at it and be, turning in their graves if they saw the kind of shit that some of these artists are doing and the way that we're promoting music right now, and, who's at the top. And it's really based off of how many Instagram likes or Instagram followers or Facebook likes and shit. And I feel like the people who really paved the way, the Jimi Hendrix of the world, the Jim Morrisons of the world, the Tupac Shakur's, they wouldn't be down with that. I think they kind of feel how I feel, where it's like your talent should pave the way and your drive and your work ethic should be what people idolize, not how much money you have in your bank account.
100%.
That's what I meant by that.
Yeah, that's so true. Can you make it if there wouldn't be any social media means for you to use nowadays, if you're just starting off?
Well, social media has been very kind to me. So I have to, it's kind of a double-edged sword there. Like, I don't like the fact that there's such a big emphasis on it. At the same time, I'm not a Luddite. Like, I do love technology. I love how far it's taken us and stuff. But at the end of the day, like the emphasis that's pushed upon people to, raise their numbers as opposed to raise their talent level or their skill set, I feel like is way too much. And if you follow the laws of progression, we're not headed in a good direction. 20 years from now, people just won't even care about talent. They won't even care about drive or motivation or ambition, rather. And they'll just look at the plays and they'll look at the, you know what I mean? So I feel like there has to be some kind of split.
100%. Nick, I want to dive a bit deeper and ask you, what experience are you the most grateful for and why?
The TV show that I was on was a monumental, place in my career because I idolized a lot of these people. Like I was saying, Ryan Tedder and Donna Summer, I got to meet her before she passed. So like there was a lot of idols that I had that just showed up all of a sudden. We didn't know who the guests were going to be. And all of a sudden I'm sitting across from Jermaine Dupri and I'm like, dude, I used to watch your music videos, man. So like, for me, that was such an eye-opening experience that I'd probably say that entire TV show experience is something I'm the most grateful for because it really led me to be where I'm at today. And that's really what I'm most grateful for is the place that I've gotten to now. So
100%. I love that.
Yeah. Really nice. It's said that all these big artists nowadays are very controversial because like just before they are about to release a song or anything similar, even like in the Hollywood industry, the elites or I don't know, someone who's controlling the big shit nowadays has to go through their filter, and after that you can listen or you can watch that movie. And I'm not a theory conspirational right now, but I'm just trying to ask you what's your opinion on that. I mean, would you, if you would be at the top, play by their rules just to make it and to be like there in the
Yeah,
top, or would you just?
that's a good question, man. I think that what you're really talking about are gatekeepers at the end of the day, because there are a lot of gatekeepers. You know, for a while, it was all of the major record labels. And that's what I was talking about with the double-edged sword of social media. That's the positive side, where you don't really have to be on a major label to make it nowadays, because there's so many people going on social media and there's all these new platforms that are rising up. So, you know, me personally, like I said, I'm with the talent, ambition, you know, motivation and drive part of the music industry. Those are the people that I really want to see win. And those are the people that I would help win if I was in a better position than I am now. You know, I still help people out that are like, you know, that I think are very motivated and driven. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not a huge power player where I can just open up the gates and, you know what I mean, sign people to like huge labels and stuff like that. So for me, I think that kind of part of the industry is starting to crumble. And I think that's a good thing, because you will see a lot more pay for play stuff, but you'll also see a lot more people that are talented and driven that really deserve to be, you know, showed some attention.
Nick, speaking of being super ambitious and driven, which I know you are, obviously with success, before you get there, you gotta, I guess, experience a lot of setbacks. And with that said, I really want to dive into one of your biggest failures. How did that feel, and what was the learning curve after it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to that show that I was on, because it really had a lot to do with my story. I didn't win. You know, I placed fourth in the competition. And the producers basically told me that they pulled me from the show. They were kind of controlling things from behind the scenes, and that they wanted to sign me to a record deal with RCA Jive, which is no longer around now. But so that was like one of my big defeats, because I really came into that show wanting to win it. You know, I was talking shit about all the other contestants, and I meant every word that I said. I was kind of like the bad boy. And for me, man, like, I still feel like I deserve to win that show. And then, you know, if you look now, there's nobody that's really competing anymore. There's nobody out of the 12 contestants. I'm the only one that got signed to a major deal. I'm the only one that's worked with artists like Snoop Dogg and French Montana. And I'm the only one that's really pushing an artist career right now. So I think that, you know, life kind of came in after the TV reality stuff was done. And we had to prove what we're going to do in the real competition, which is life. So for me, I feel like I won this side of it, but, you know, going back 10 years almost, it was heartbreaking, man. My heart wrenched, you know what I mean? Like, I was like really, really in the mud about losing that competition. So I'd say that was probably my biggest failure.
I want to say that you lost the competition, because, I mean, you got where you are right now because you had opportunities. So I don't know, maybe if you had got the first place, maybe that would be a difference, I guess. But that doesn't really matter that much, because you are where you are because of your, I don't know, maybe lessons or mistakes that you consider that you have done in the past.
Sure. I mean, the winner got $100,000, so I'm still a little upset about the money. I'm not gonna lie.
Fair enough.
Talking about money, I mean, a lot of people are considering that money is the root of the whole evil. But I just wanted to ask you if you consider that being rich is something selfish or not.
I mean, at the end of the day, what you do with the wealth that you accumulate really defines who you are. So if you're trying to get rich so you can buy yourself, you know, a Maserati and not call any of your family members or your friends, I would call that selfish. But if you're trying to get money so that you can help your family members and help people that you love kind of rise up with you, or if you're an artist like me, if you're trying to help other artists or help inner city children or, you know, kids that are just, you know, disadvantaged who don't have the ability to make music, I think that then, you know, the greed for money is well deserved, you know, and I don't see a problem with it.
I love that perspective. Nick, I'm really curious. You've worked with very big names like French Montana, you mentioned, and Snoop Dogg. Are these people different than us? Why did they get there? Why do you think they are where they are right now?
I mean, I can't really speak specifically to any artist that I've worked with because I really don't know the steps that they've taken to get to the place that they're at. A lot of these people that when I work with them, they were kind of already a name or just kind of like French Montana, for instance, was just kind of getting a big buzz around him right when I work with him. And then he just skyrocketed. What I will say is that anybody who I've worked with has shown me a small piece of why they're in the position that they're in now by hard work and definitely a lot of professionalism. I wouldn't say that anybody who's on a certain level is different than any of us. I would just say that we're in different stages of our journey. And, to not compare yourself if you're at a lower stage of your journey, et cetera, because at the end of the day, a lot of those people were in the same position at one point, looking up at some of their idols and wanting to be where they are. So I think it's like a kind of a chain of motivation and a chain of passion that people just kind of go through. And yeah, I mean, I'm still in, a certain part of my journey and I'm still working to get to the next level. So for me, man, I'm just all about the hard work and the, perseverance. And like I said, drive, man, it's all about ambition and drive.
Yeah, you'll get there in no time.
Absolutely.
With the work rate that you currently have.
Sure.
And talking about that, I'm just curious, what's your biggest goal? Is it to be like up there with all these big names, or is it something else?
Yeah, I mean, for me, my goals are a little bit broader than money and fame and stuff like that. Like, I'm kind of a private guy. Like, I don't really want to be to the place where I can't go to a movie, with my chick or something and get bombarded by people. That's not really like what I'm going for. If that happens, it's cool. But for me, like, I want to help people that were in the place that I was in a long time ago. So one of those big things is kids who don't have instruments and kids who are not privileged and didn't grow up with the silver spoon in their mouth and don't have money and stuff. So like, if I could get to a place where I could like help start a school to help children kind of learn music and not be forced to go to math and science and physical education and shit that they don't really think that they're going to use in their life, that would really, be the end all be all for me, because that's who I was. You know what I mean? Like, I was kicked out of like every school that I went to. They kept calling me a failure. I kept getting, in trouble in school and stuff. So for me, and now like the people that were in my class are driving a fucking Uber doing nothing with their lives. So for me, it's like, if I could help direct kids who kind of feel lost and don't succeed in the left brain kind of school systems that we have today, that would be, my ultimate, that's, I take that above a Grammy.
I would argue that with how karma works, with the more you give, the more you receive, I think you would get both, to be honest.
I appreciate that, brother.
You were mentioning that you've been kicked out of school and you were considered failure, and it's definitely a subject that I'm very fascinated about. Can you get back to that period and how it was for you at the time?
It was rough, man, because I was a creative kid. Like I mentioned, my grandparents wrote for Frank Sinatra and stuff. So like, I wanted to be like them. I never wanted to be in class. They said I had ADD, ADHD, I would get in fights, and all of this was just a creative mind that wasn't really allowed to be creative at the time. So I would like lash out and branch out in all these different ways. I once took a glove to school and started dancing for the girls like Michael Jackson, and I got suspended for it. So, I mean, granted, I grabbed my crotch, but like, they were trying to shut down the part of my brain that operates the most, which is my right brain, creativity and, songwriting and painting and stuff like that. And so for me now, looking back, I feel like the school systems are still doing it a little bit wrong. And, grading everybody together and expecting kids to have the exact same skill sets when they don't, you know what I mean? You're never graded on your kindness or humor. And I think that those things are really important in life, whether you're a good person, you're never graded on your heart or your creative capabilities. And I feel like that's not forming the best people in the aggregate society. So like I said, one of my goals is to kind of disrupt the school system a little bit and to change the stuff that they're doing, because it really fucked me up as a kid. And, I'm grateful to God that I got out of that and I was able to get to the place that I'm at now, but not everybody's as lucky and not everybody will, have the same opportunities. So like, it hurts my heart to think that somebody's going through what I went through, 15, 20 years ago, without a light at the end of the tunnel.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think it was the whole, I guess, school system. It was broken on purpose, because if you look back to like the 1900s, when the Rockefeller family has invested hundreds of millions of dollars in developing the school system, one of the big guys said at the time that he's not looking to have a generation of thinkers. He is looking to have a generation of workers.
That's right.
I wanna go.
I'm happy you know that.
I want to go forward and ask you, do you think that each of us that has been given a life on Earth is creative or not?
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, we have, two hemispheres of our brain and the neocortex that really work together. They work holistically the best. So it's not that you need to be completely left brain and just think logically and have analytical thought, or that you just need to be creative and that you just need to be compassionate. It's a combination of those two things holistically coming together that makes an intelligent person. So even the word intelligence breaks down to left and right brain. So intel comes from being able to, memorize and comprise facts together. And that's where we get the word intel. And gens comes from generare, which means to create. It's the same place where we get the word generation, or to generate. It means to create. So a true intelligent person has both of those hemispheres working in accordance with one another. And that's something that I learned outside of school that they never taught me about. And that's something that needs to go into modern schools today, because it's like, that's something I think kids should hear. I heard that as an adult for the first time. I heard that like when I was like 28 years old. And so for me, I feel like if I knew that way back when, I would probably take some of the pressure and the guilt off of myself for not getting an A in science or algebra. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But it's a good thing, because I heard lately so many people talking about how fucked up the current education system is, and talking about that, what would you specifically change about this industry?
The industry or the school systems?
The school systems.
School systems. Yeah, I would really change the fact that, like I said, everybody's being graded together. And that's giving the idea that everybody is the same when we're not. Every single person that's in that classroom, every single person on this earth, rather, has a unique quality that makes them them. So I could never be Bogdan and Bogdan could never be me, because we both have different things that we were blessed with. And there's a different spark that created us from the whatever you believe God is or the creator is. He made us very different. So for us to walk into a school system together and to be graded the exact same way and to be judged the exact same way, it's not accurate. And where is the love? Do you know what I mean? Like, where is the love, the vitamin of love in the school system? I never felt it. You know what I mean? Like, and I think a lot of people feel that way. There's this like hardcore rearing that goes on, and this like harsh discipline and all these punishments that come, but there's never an embrace. There's never any, I don't want like teachers to start touching kids or anything, but I feel like there's a way to kind of help human beings grow spiritually and emotionally, and that kindness can be focused on and humor could be focused on, and it's just not right now. And like I said, I think that's developing a different type of society that doesn't have that much love and doesn't have that much kindness.
Yeah, definitely. I think we lack acceptance more than anything.
Absolutely.
Because in order to love something, you first have to accept it. You have to accept the fact that it might be very different from you. And
sure,
that's all right. I mean, that's the beauty of life. I think what differentiates us makes us more beautiful.
Absolutely.
But we were speaking about spiritual stuff, and I really want to touch on a different subject, and that is spiritual warfare, and how nowadays there's almost like a constant focus on developing kids the wrong way. And what I mean by that is whenever I'm going to the gym, without even most of the time without even realizing, I'm listening to like songs from Cardi B where I hear things such as like pussy, dick all time over, and like myself not being native in English is not like a super heartbreaking thing, but oftentimes I'm looking at my girlfriend and I'm like, imagine raising kids in like the UK or the USA where English is like your main language, taking them into like a public space and they hear that without you even realizing at times. And I feel like that's developing them not necessarily in a wrong way, but in a, I guess, in a more aggressive way. And I think it lacks a lot of spiritual depth. What's your take on that?
I completely agree with you. It's the over-sexualization of young kids from a very early age. Like I watch a lot of kids movies and stuff, so I'm really in tune with like what Disney's doing and what Pixar's doing, and I see it everywhere. It's nonstop. It's running rampant right now in our streets. So there's really no place for a child to go nowadays without being bombarded with some sort of sexual connotation or talking about money. And if you're listening to the male side of things, they're talking about killing people and selling drugs and stuff. And so that's one of the things that I kind of wanted to separate myself in the music industry, especially as a rapper, and talk about more conscious issues and talk about, social issues, because I feel like there's a big lack there and we don't really have much of that. And we do have, there's definitely not a void for the pussy talk and the Cardi B stuff. So I felt like I would kind of go in a different direction. I still have songs where I'm, obviously talking about sex. I'm a grown ass man. So it's a part of my life and I speak my truth. But at the end of the day, a lot of my music is more directed towards awakening people to social conscious issues and social awareness and stuff, as opposed to bombarding them with stuff that they're already getting bombarded with. I mean, for me as a kid, like we used to have to sneak into a liquor store and, and act like we're doing something so we could take a look at the nudie mags. It wasn't that we can just go on the internet and find this stuff. So now it's like really accessible. It's a lot easier for kids to find sex, to look at sex. And you see what the ingredient and the recipe is equating to. It's a pie full of kids that are now changing their sexualities at like 5 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like, so for me, I know there's an agenda behind all of this. And, that's why I like to be boots on the ground and try to do my spiritual work to make sure that, we are raising holistic kids who don't really have all of this stuff being bombarded with them without another place to go. So I'd like to be the alternative option for them.
Absolutely love that, brother. And speaking of that, I'm more than certain that you know about the so-called, I guess, mental breakdown that Kanye West had, I think, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. I was analyzing that event last year, and myself, I used to listen to a lot of rap and hip hop 3-4 years ago. I mean, I was only listening to hip hop and rap. Nowadays, I'm very selective with what I listen to. But back then, when Kanye West has literally changed his approach 180, I was like, what is going on with this guy? And then later on, I realized, hold on a second. I think he actually realized that what he was preaching was not coming from his core. And I hated the fact that a lot of people thought that he was going mental. Like even one of my good friends, he was like, no, man, like he's on medications. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And I was like, I think he's more aware than ever of what he's talking about right now.
Right. Yeah, man. I mean, Kanye's an interesting character because anybody with that much success and in a relationship with somebody else who's had that much success, you kind of got to blink a double eye at and kind of be somewhat suspicious of to some degree. At the same time, you also need to be open to the fact that it's very possible that, he wasn't replaced and he wasn't taken from us and that he's still the same guy. And maybe he has some revelations happen in his life that forced him to change his perspective. So, for me, I really look at the message because that's one thing that you really can't fake, especially if it's a heartfelt message. There's all of these, ads and kind of, fakery that happens, but the human soul is something that we can't fake. when you're talking to somebody and you can feel their spirit, that's something that can never be really faked. So at least genuinely faked. So I think a lot of what he said was true. I think a lot of what he was saying was trying to use his voice as much as he could in the position that he was in. I felt like he was leading a horse to water, and then you had to go drink.
Yeah, that's a very, very well way to say it. You were mentioning about awakening, and there are so many people who has been awoken, let's put it that way, but there are still so many people who are really brainwashed. I mean, they've been raised to just go to school, then save some money, buy an apartment, and go on a vacation once a year, and that's it. Wait a little bit to get your pension, and that's it. And what would you tell someone who is in this position, who is brainwashed?
Yeah, I'd tell them that spiritual awakening is the best time I've ever had in my entire fucking life. And all of the money in the world could not pay for the experience that I had. It's priceless. There's no monetary value on it. When you become awake and aware and conscious to the information that has been passed around for your entire life, and you can look at it from a different perspective and see it from a higher level and look kind of down at it, you'll never get higher. No drug or alcohol purchase will ever make you feel the way you feel when you're conscious, enlightened, and in touch with the universe. So for me personally, being enlightened was the best time of my life. You know what I mean? Like, it was scary and it was very hard. I had to look into the mirror repeatedly and say, I was wrong. But after that point, it was some of the best fun that I ever had in my entire life. I wouldn't trade it up for anything. And I really wish that more people did it, because like I said, it's the best thing that can ever happen to a human being on earth, is to be enlightened, awakened, and conscious, and open up that third eye.
I love that. I would say that nobody can actually truly live happily and joyfully without actually being conscious of their own presence first.
Agreed.
So speaking of that, what would you say would be 3 things that people can implement right now to become more conscious / happier?
Number 1, turn off the box. Stop watching television, at least cable television. Stop believing everything that's been told to you would be my second one. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of goes with watching TV, but it's more in the sense of like talking to people. I mean, peers can be such a huge consciousness block that it's not even funny. You know what I mean? Like, people can become conscious and then go talk to 10 of their buddies, and the moment they're not on the same page, they completely forgot everything they learned, and they shudder and they get scared and they don't want to, talk about the stuff that they just learned. So I would say, being your own independent person and kind of, having the balls to take a step into the light, regardless of if you have your best friends with you, is another great piece of advice for becoming conscious. I mean, read, man, while it's still legal, before they start burning the books, read, man, because there's so many great thinkers that came before us that paved the way, and a lot of them did it so that we would be in a position where we're free and that we're enlightened, and that's what they're fighting against. That's what the powers that be are fighting against. These legends that came before us that are looking at us like they're great grandchildren, and were worried about us and scared for us. So they wrote all of these amazing books, and they wrote all of this consciousness and enlightenment down so that we wouldn't be in a position where we're being oppressed and where we're forced to wear a mask in a country where, our ancestors stormed the beaches of Normandy, man. Like, it's folly. So for me, I would say, open up your mind, stop watching TV, and really go back in time. It's kind of like a time travel situation where you got to go back and listen to the greats, man, because they were telling us. All we have to do is listen.
Definitely. I'm gonna mention a quote that I've been mentioning the past couple of episodes, and that is, strong men make good Hard times make strong men. Strong men make good times. Good times make weak men. Weak men make hard times. And right now, I think
Love
we are
that.
in the last part
I
of the
love that.
cycle.
That's great, man. Yeah, struggle breeds greatness, you know?
Talking about masks and about being enlightened, what's your honest take with all this coronavirus?
At the end of the day, I think that it's a tool that's being used by the powers that be, or the powers that should not be, I should say, to oppress us. You know, it's kind of obvious. It's right in our face. It's what's happening. And not that coronavirus itself isn't real, but it's not as serious as they're pumping it. CDC actually just removed the mask mandate, which is a huge step in the right direction because we should have never had masks on in the first place. It's a fucking cold. If you're 90 years old and you get a cold, you might die. So there's no, there's nothing behind that other than the facts. So if you have pneumonia when you're fucking 85 years old, you might have some complications. It's the same thing as this coronavirus thing. So they're using it to promote their agenda and to kind of bring over China's laws and China's regulations here in the States and in other countries as well. So, I'm a Trumper at the end of the day, man. I'm a huge Trump supporter. And I think that if he was still in office, we wouldn't be dealing with this right now. I think this is more the Joe Biden virus than it is coronavirus. And we're starting to see that it's getting removed. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, I think we are slowly moving into the right direction, but it takes so much time purely because still a big chunk of people are still supporting the whole movement, and there are people that had no meaning for life before, and now the meaning they have is this whole pandemic, and if they see you not wearing a mask properly in the shop, they're like, "Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very annoying. But I was speaking to one of my good friends the other day, and he was like, dude, like right now, I just had a big realization. And for us men to truly be free, like there's two ways, right? You either obey to all the rules, or you get into such a financial position where you can make your own rules, have your own private jet, only fly private wherever you want without taking tests and vaccinating yourself 3 times a year. And that's the reality. And another thing, and with that, I'm gonna wrap up the whole subject because it pisses me off every day. Yesterday on the radio, usually I turn off the radio as soon as I hear something that has to do with the pandemic. But yesterday I was a bit more chilled, and there was a guy at the radio, bless him. He was like, I feel like there are people that have always been miserable. They were not doing anything with their lives. And now with this pandemic, they have yet another reason for not doing anything because, well, there's a pandemic. Like, that's why my whole life sucks and everything crumbles just purely because of the pandemic. They don't take ownership.
Yeah, man, I think that this particular this coronavirus, it attacked the worst kind of people, which are the type of people that will say something to you at a restaurant, the people that are hypochondriacs, that are very afraid of getting sick, even if it's not coronavirus. They were already afraid of getting sick. So now those people are using their power now. And these are the kind of people that wanted to tell you to do something regardless of what it is. And now they're going full blownsies and they're like, you have to wear your mask. And so these people, they're loving it. It's mainly a power trip. Listen, Big Brother's agenda is not to surveil you and to watch every move that you do. This Big Brother's agenda is to get your neighbor to surveil you so that they don't have to do anything, and to get your neighbors and your friends to be the police officer at your front door so that they don't have to do anything and every person could police each other. That's the main agenda. And that's really what they're trying for right now.
Yeah, it's like a whole religion cult.
Absolutely.
Yeah, talking about good and bad and perspective and about doing the right thing and the wrong thing. I'm just curious, obviously it's very subjective, but what would you say is the meaning of life?
The meaning of life. I'll be honest, for me, finding enlightenment and finding consciousness and awareness became a huge part of the meaning of life because it gave meaning to life. Before, life was just kind of mundane and I don't want to say meaningless, But once I became conscious, it really gave a much deeper and more profound meaning to my entire life in every single area, musically speaking, my relationships, politically, everything. So it's such a huge holistic idea, becoming conscious, that I would say that is some portion of the meaning of life, to become awake and aware that we have controllers and that people are trying to oppress us, and to rise up out of that. Family is a huge part of the meaning of life. Music is a huge part of the meaning of life. But like I said, consciousness kind of branches out and grabs all of those things and puts them into this big pot and stirs it. So for me, I would say being enlightened and being conscious, man.
I love that, man.
Yeah, that was really nice. And it's so good that you have this mindset, this mentality, because there are so many people nowadays that their biggest goal is just, like you said, to buy a Maserati or to, I don't know, be featured on a shitty magazine that only people who are really broken would read. And talking about change and about enlightenment, what would you change about yourself right now? What's one thing that that would, I don't know, maybe take you to the next level if you change?
I mean, for me, I have a huge heart. And so I still have hope for people that I probably shouldn't have hope for anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I've been banging on my brother's door for, I'd say it's a decade now, just hoping that he'll just see some piece of light of what I'm saying. And I probably know in my heart of heart that he's not going to, but I still, because I'm such a nice, kind guy, I still put the time in and I still put the effort into people that maybe I shouldn't. But, part of being conscious and being enlightened is that I have so much more in me than I feel like other people who have not walked down this path have. So I'll never give up. I'll never give up on my family members. My grandfather is somebody who's like completely unconscious to all of this information. He's one of those old school Italian guys where I'm trying to relate it to the mob. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is like the big mafia, Gramps. And he's like, I don't want to fucking hear it. And so, but I'll never give up on him. So I'd probably, I could do a lot more for myself if I wasn't so leading with my heart and wearing my heart on my sleeve. But that's something I feel like, I'd probably be a lot further along my journey if I didn't care so much, but I do.
Yeah, well, maybe you would be way ahead, or maybe not, of where you are right now, but definitely you're going to be on a different direction, going in a different direction, because
sure.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't do the things that you do with your heart and with passion, and if you don't truly believe in them, I mean, it's never going to happen to you. Or if it's going to happen,
sure.
It won't have any meaning, or better said, better meaning, like something which is really significant, isn't it?
Fulfilling, yeah.
Sure.
Nick, I wanted to ask you, and this is a very random question that we ask each guest. If and I'm pretty sure that there will come a day when this will be possible. If there would be a possibility for you to become immortal, would you choose to? And
I saw you guys talking about this on a previous show. And that was one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you guys. And I reached out because I was like, these guys are deep, they're spiritual, they're asking some very interesting questions. That's a tough one, man, because I love life and I'd love to stay here for as long as I could and clone myself and, you know what I mean, make a dozen of Nick Nittolis. At the same time, I feel like this is a very special opportunity that we've all been given. And so where I'm at 33, I need to really fully experience that and to enjoy it. And then it won't be the same at 34 and it won't be the same at 35, the same way it wasn't the same at 12 or 13. And that was kind of my time to go through those ages. And so, and I do believe in God, and I do believe in, the seventh level of heaven. And I do believe that we are going somewhere. So for me, this body, this physical being, I know is just kind of a car and I'm just driving through. And then afterwards, I will go to another place and have a new vehicle And I'm excited for that. I know that sounds kind of morbid, but I am looking forward to the next portion of my journey. So for me, I would probably deny the immortality thing, even though it is very tempting. Let me tell you.
I love it. I love it, and I agree with you. I'm on the same page, and I would say that we are just physical beings having a spiritual experience.
That's right.
With that said, like we can only wish for immortality purely because this is all that's been shown to us.
Yeah.
Maybe this is just 1% or 5% of what's actually possible on a spiritual level, on a higher density level.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's come back from being dead and said, this is what happens. So we're all just kind of treading on this mystery plane right now of existence. We don't really know what happens afterwards. And, there's a lot of struggles I feel like we're going to have in this life because possibly the next plane of existence is so magical and so wonderful and so full of so many amazing things that this is our time to struggle. This is our time to struggle with finances and struggle and fight with an ex-girlfriend or a girlfriend. And I feel like the powers that be might have some information about that. And so their job, I feel like, is to really make our lives on Earth very difficult. Which we know that they do, because I think they know we're going to a much better place. I do have a song. I do have a song coming out about this.
When is it going to be released?
I would say it should be out by like next week. It's called Place for Us. And the cover art is heaven and hell just kind of split up into two. And I'm basically asking the questions of like, what happens after we leave here? You know what I mean? Like, is there a door charge to get into heaven? Are there police officers there? Is there a jail in heaven? I'm basically asking all the questions that most people are thinking about. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful record. I'll make sure I send it to you guys.
Yeah, definitely do. Do.
We'll check it out. Yeah, definitely.
Sure.
But before going in the heaven and hell, what would you want to be remembered for or as?
At the end of the day, like the music thing is a huge portion of my life and I love it so much. But if I was, going to be executed tomorrow, say, I would want to be remembered for the personal relationships that I had with people, the things I did to try to help humanity as a whole. I would want people to really look at the fact that I really I tried to get across the point that there's only one race, and that's the human race. And that we should all kind of come together and live in harmony and to, be more peaceful and to have a lot more love. So that message for me is a lot more important than any of the music that I put out. That's the new music that I'm working on is trying to kind of combine those two messages a little bit so that my music is more of a reflection of that message, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely it does. It does. And I would say that anything that we do, anything that we create, be it an experience, be it a song album, is just an expression of our consciousness. And I think we are all here to express. And I mean, what we've been talking about, their job is to suppress us, so we are not able to express as much.
That's right.
But yeah, obviously, everything comes to an end, and I want to be very mindful of your time and our audience time, Nick, and therefore we'll be asking you the last question of the show. Just take your time with it.
Sure.
So you're on your deathbed. You already said goodbye to everyone that you love. There's no pain involved, but you know that sooner than later you will be stepping onto the other side, into the darkness. But before you do that, you get to witness the best version of yourself, the person that you could have become. You look that person in the eye, you see and comprehend what you could have become. How would you feel about yourself and the life that you lived in that moment prior to dying?
Man, that's some deep shit. So wait, this is I'm looking at the person that I could not become?
You could have become the best version of yourself.
Man, I think that I'm living my life every day to make sure that person looks 100% like me and that I am that person. If it doesn't work out that way, I'll probably be pretty pissed off. But that's kind of like my daily goal, is to make sure that I don't have regrets and that I don't end up in a place where I'm looking at that person and saying, what if, and I should have, cared more, I should have shown more of my heart. So that's a tough one for me, because I think I'm daily working on trying to become that person, as opposed to ending up in a place on my deathbed where I'm seeing this person that I could have or would have been. If it happens, I probably would feel a lot of regret and remorse. But like I said, every day that's something on my mind. And that's kind of what this song is about that I'm about to put out, called Place for Us. It's really just about trying to perfect ourselves. That kind of goes back to the question you had earlier about what is the meaning of life. I think the meaning of life is to become the most, perfected version of yourself on this planet. You know what I mean? Like every single day, you're supposed to be different. You're supposed to change and evolve into, a better person. And so that you could look at yourself 10 years ago or 20 years ago and go, wow, I was really fucking up back then. Look at where I'm at now. Look at how I'm doing this shit now. So, God forbid that I am in that position, but I really hope that I make the steps today and tomorrow and every day until that day comes that I'm not in that position.
You know what, Nick? I'm more than sure that you're going to be looking into a mirror, and even if you might think that, you will have any regrets. At the end of the day, there's so much you can do, and if you think and if you really feel in your core that you have done the right thing in those situations, even though it wouldn't be the best outcome that you preferred, those moments are the moments that shape us in life, even though we see them as a struggle or as, I don't know, something bad. And I'm more than sure that you're going to be looking into a mirror, because I
appreciate that.
Yeah, we really got to acknowledge you for what you have done and the person that you are today.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Likewise, man, it takes one to know one. You know what I mean? Like, I've done a bunch of podcasts with people where this was not the vibe. So you guys asked some amazingly deep questions. And, when you get asked a question like that, it comes from a mind of somebody who's focused on that and is thinking about stuff like that. So hats off to you guys. You guys have my ultimate respect. Anytime you guys want to hop on and just chat again, I'd be more than happy to do it. This was amazing.
Cheers, appreciate it. And before we let you go, we're just gonna roll you the red carpet and just tell our audience where they can find you, where they can listen to your music, and everything that you want to share. Now is the moment.
Sure, yeah. Everything is at Nick Nittoli, NickNittoli. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, you name it. And I'm dropping a new album on June 6th. It's called Untitled, and there's going to be some deep songs on there with some deep messages. So look out.
Awesome, man. Well, Nick, it's been
in the description of the podcast.
Awesome.
Anyway.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you, guys.
It's been it's been a pleasure talking to you again.
Same.
And I'm more than sure that our audience got a lot of value out of this podcast. And thank you so much, guys, for listening. You've been listening to The Grateful Show with Nick. This was Bogdan.
This is Pascu, and you guys, stay grateful. Thank you so much for sticking all the way till the end. This shows that you are serious about taking your life to the next level and doing that through a perspective of gratitude. If you enjoyed this interview, it would help us massively if you could give us a 5-star rating review on iTunes, or else share this on your stories and tag us. This way, with your help, our message will be seen by more people, and together we will make this world a better place.